I never thought the last video I'd ever post would be the one that proved everything, and cost him his life. As I stood on that cliff filming what I thought was just another vlog, I didn't see the 9-foot creature step into frame behind me, and I definitely didn't see the hunters climbing up with their rifles aimed right at us. But here's what still keeps me awake at night. If he knew saving me would lead them straight to his body, why did he reach for me anyway? My name is Jennifer, and 3 months ago I packed everything my daughter and I owned into a U-Haul and drove as far from Vancouver as the tank would take us. I was 38 years old, newly divorced, and so tired of explaining myself to people who thought they knew better. The property I found was 2 hours north of Campbell River, tucked into the edge of Strathcona Provincial Park, where the road turns from pavement to gravel and your phone signal just gives up. It was cheap because it was far from everything. That was exactly what I wanted. The cabin was small but solid. 2 bedrooms, a wood stove, and windows that looked out at nothing but trees. Maya loved it right away. She was 12 and hadn't smiled much since her dad left, but when she saw her room with the slanted ceiling and the window seat, something softened in her face. I set up my phone on the kitchen counter that first night and filmed a vlog entry like I used to do before everything fell apart. "Hey everyone," I said to the camera, trying to sound upbeat. "Fresh start, new place, just me and my girl figuring things out." I posted it and got maybe 40 views. That was fine. I wasn't doing it for the numbers anymore. The first week was quiet. We unpacked boxes, swept out dust, and tried to make the place feel like ours. I'd wake up early and film the sunrise over the ridge. The light came through the trees in these long golden shafts, and it felt like something out of a postcard. Maya would shuffle out in her pajamas and lean against me while we watched the mist lift off the valley. Those mornings felt like healing, like maybe we'd actually be okay out here. Then small things started happening. Nothing big at first, just odd. I had stacked a bunch of firewood in a messy pile by the shed because I was too tired to do it right. The next morning it was stacked perfectly. Neat rows, all the split ends facing out like someone who knew what they were doing had spent time on it. I stood there with my coffee, staring. Maya asked if I did it in my sleep. I laughed, but my stomach felt weird. "No," I said. "Maybe the previous owner came by." But I didn't believe that. A few days later, I went out to my truck and saw handprints on the hood, huge ones. The fingers were longer than mine by half, and the palm was wide enough to cover the whole Toyota logo. They were pressed into the dust, like someone had leaned on it to look inside. I measured one with my hand spread out. My fingers didn't even reach halfway up those prints. I filmed it, my voice shaky. "So this is weird," I said to the camera. "I don't know what animal does this." People in the comments said bear. "Bears stand up and touch stuff all the time," someone wrote. "You're in the woods. What do you expect?" I wanted to believe them. Maya started saying she saw someone. It was always the same story. She'd be playing outside or looking out her window before bed, and she'd see a big man standing at the tree line, not moving, just watching. I asked her what he looked like, and she said tall. Really, really tall. And furry, like he was wearing a coat made of hair. She wasn't scared when she said it. That was the part that got me. She said it the way you'd talk about a neighbor you'd seen a few times. I told her it was probably shadows or a tree stump shaped weird. She looked at me like I was the one not paying attention. Then the cameras started catching things. I had set up a cheap motion sensor camera by the shed to see what was getting into our trash. At night it would trigger and I'd check the footage in the morning. Most of it was nothing. A raccoon, a deer passing through, branches moving in the wind. But one night the camera caught something walking upright past the shed. It was only in frame for 3 seconds. The shape was massive and moved smooth, not lumbering like a bear. I watched it 20 times. People online said it was a person in a suit. They said I was faking it for views. One guy said I was a divorced mom, desperate for attention. I stopped reading the comments after that. The thing that finally made my hands shake happened on a Tuesday. Maya's stuffed rabbit went missing. It was this old gray bunny she'd had since she was 4. She slept with it every night, especially after the divorce. She'd left it on her bed that morning, she swore. When we got back from town that afternoon, it was gone. We searched the whole cabin. I tore apart her room, checked under furniture, went through the laundry. Nothing. I thought maybe she'd dropped it outside, so we walked the yard. That's when I found it. It was sitting on a stump about 100 yards into the forest, placed there, not dropped, not dragged by an animal. It was sitting upright with its little arms out, like someone had posed it. I picked it up, and my heart was pounding so hard, I felt sick. Maya stood next to me looking at the trees. "He gave it back," she said quietly. "Who?" I asked. "The big man. He didn't want me to be sad." I held that rabbit and filmed myself standing there because I didn't know what else to do. My voice cracked when I spoke. "I don't know what's happening," I said to the camera. "I really don't. But something is out here, and it knows we're here too." That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to the wind and the creaks of the cabin settling. Around 3 in the morning, I heard something outside my window, a low sound, rhythmic, almost like humming, not words, just a deep rolling sound that vibrated through the walls. I got up slow and looked through the curtain. I couldn't see anything in the dark, but I felt it, something large and alive standing just beyond the glass, listening to me the same way I was listening to it. I started leaving food at the edge of the trees. It felt crazy even as I was doing it. I'd take an apple or some smoked salmon from the fridge and walk it out to the same spot where I'd found Maya's rabbit. I'd set it on the stump and back away slowly, my phone recording the whole thing. "I'm not trying to hurt you," I said to the empty forest. "I just want to understand." Maya stood on the porch watching me. She didn't think it was weird at all. She waved at the trees like she was saying hello to a friend. The food always disappeared by morning, not scattered around like a raccoon got into it, just gone, clean. Once I left a whole apple, and the next day the core was back on the stump with the seeds lined up in a row next to it. I stared at those seeds for a long time. Animals don't do that. Animals don't arrange things. My chest felt tight. I filmed it and posted the video, and within an hour people were calling me a liar. They said I staged it. They said I was trying to start some viral hoax. One person wrote that I should be ashamed for using my daughter as a prop. I almost deleted everything right there. But then something happened that I couldn't fake even if I tried. It was a Thursday night, and I woke up at 3 in the morning to a sound outside my bedroom window, the same low humming I'd heard before, but this time it had a pattern. It went low, then higher, then low again, over and over. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand and started recording audio. My hands were shaking so bad the phone kept slipping. The sound was deep enough that I could feel it in my ribs. It wasn't threatening. That's the weird part. It felt almost gentle, like a lullaby you'd hum to a baby. I lay there in the dark listening until it stopped. When I played the recording back in the morning, you could hear it clear as day. Maya came into my room and listened. "That's his song," she said. "He does it when he wants us to know he's nearby." I didn't know what to do with that. Part of me wanted to pack up and leave. Part of me felt something I couldn't name. It was like having a neighbor you'd never met but who kept doing small kind things. Fixing your fence. Returning your mail. I kept thinking about how he'd brought Maya's rabbit back. How the food was always taken but nothing else was ever touched or broken. He could have torn the place apart if he wanted to. He didn't. One morning Maya asked if she could make him a picture. I said okay, not really thinking about it. She sat at the kitchen table with her markers and drew a picture of a little girl with black hair holding hands with a tall brown figure. The figure had long arms and kind eyes. She wrote "My friend" at the top in wobbly letters. "Can we leave this for him?" she asked. I looked at that drawing and something in my throat got tight. "Sure, baby," I said. We walked out together and she placed it on the stump. She smoothed it down so the wind wouldn't take it and then stepped back. "Thank you for being nice," she said to the trees. "I love you." The next morning there was a response. I saw it from the kitchen window and actually gasped. On the ground in front of the stump was a pattern made of stones and feathers. The stones were arranged in a spiral about 2 feet wide. Each stone was smooth and round like it had been picked carefully. In the center were 3 hawk feathers standing upright, stuck into the dirt in a perfect triangle. Around the outside were small white pebbles forming a circle. It was beautiful. It was deliberate. I walked out there and just stood over it, my breath coming fast. Maya came running out in her bare feet. "He made me art," she said. "He made me art back." I filmed it from every angle. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I felt something bigger than fear. Wonder maybe, or relief. I knelt down next to the spiral and spoke to my phone. "I don't know what you are," I said. My voice cracked. "But thank you. Thank you for being gentle with her. Thank you for being here." I posted the video that afternoon and it blew up. Within 3 hours it had 10,000 views. By the next morning, it was at 100,000. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. People were commenting faster than I could read. Some were amazed. Some were calling it the best evidence they'd ever seen. But others were different. They were angry or hungry or both. One guy said he was a researcher and demanded I send him the GPS coordinates. Another said he was a hunter and he'd pay me $5,000 for the location. Someone else said they were coming to British Columbia next week and they'd find me whether I helped or not. A group called themselves Crypto Investigators and said this was too important to keep private, that I had a duty to science. The comments got worse. People started analyzing my old videos, looking for landmarks, road signs, anything they could use to narrow down where I was. One person figured out what grocery store I used based on a bag in the background of a video from 2 months ago. They posted the name of the town. I felt sick. I deleted the location tags from all my videos. I went back through every single post and scrubbed any detail that could give us away. But it was too late. The video had been shared thousands of times. People had already screenshotted everything. I read one comment that made my blood go cold. "We're in BC next week with the team. DM us your location and we'll cut you in on whatever we find." There was a photo attached. 3 men in camo holding rifles, grinning at the camera like they'd just shot a deer. I stopped posting after that. I didn't film anything for 5 days, but the damage was already done. People knew we were out here. They knew something was out here, and I had led them right to him. I needed to think. Maya was at a friend's house in town for the afternoon, one of the few kids she'd met at her new school. I had a few hours alone, and my head felt like it was full of bees. I grabbed my phone and my water bottle and headed up the trail to the cliff overlook. It was my spot, the place I went when things got too heavy. The hike took about 20 minutes, and the whole way up, I kept looking over my shoulder. Every snapped branch made me jump. I told myself I was being paranoid, but my stomach stayed tight. The overlook was a flat rock shelf that stuck out over a ravine. You could see for miles from up there, trees spreading out like a green ocean and mountains in the distance with snow still on the peaks. The drop was steep, maybe 60 feet down to where the rocks and brush started. I always stayed back from the edge. Heights made my legs feel like water. I set my phone on a flat stone and hit record. I did that sometimes. Just talk to the camera like it was a friend who couldn't interrupt. "I don't know what to do," I said. My voice sounded small against all that open air. I thought moving out here would make things simple, just me and Maya starting over. But now I've got people trying to find us and something in the woods that I can't explain, and I'm scared I've made everything worse. I looked out at the trees. "Maybe we need to leave again," I said. Maybe we need to go somewhere even farther." I felt tears coming and blinked them back. I was so tired of running. What I didn't know was that 3 men were already in the forest below me. They'd driven up from somewhere near Seattle, part of a YouTube channel that called itself Pacific Crypto Hunters. They had rifles and cameras and expensive gear. They'd spent 2 days narrowing down my location using old videos, satellite images, and sheer dumb luck. They'd parked their truck a mile down a logging road and hiked in. They were looking for proof. They were looking for a trophy. And they'd spotted the cliff overlook on their map as a good vantage point. I was still talking to my phone when I heard something behind me. Not a footstep, more like a presence. The way the air changes when someone walks into a room. I turned my head and my whole body went cold. He was there, 40 feet back, standing between 2 pine trees. The Sasquatch, the creature, whatever name made sense. He was massive, taller than any person I'd ever seen, 9 feet easy, maybe more. His hair was dark reddish-brown and covered him completely except for his face and his palms. His shoulders were wide as a doorframe, but it was his eyes that froze me. They weren't animal eyes. They were looking right at me with something I can only call thought. I made a sound, not a scream, just a quick intake of breath. My phone was still recording. I didn't move. I couldn't. He took 1 step forward and I saw the way his muscles moved under all that hair. Smooth, controlled. He wasn't charging. He wasn't threatening. His head turned slightly and his eyes went from me to something below the cliff, then back to me. He made a sound, deep and urgent. Not a roar, more like a warning, a rumble that came from his chest. He lifted 1 arm and made a pushing motion with his hand. Back, away, danger. That's when I heard the voices, men's voices drifting up from below. They were excited, talking loud. I heard one of them say, "Movement up top." I heard another say, "Get the camera ready." My heart kicked into my throat. I looked back at him, and his eyes were locked on the edge of the cliff. He knew they were down there and he knew what they wanted. He took another step toward me, still making that low warning sound. His whole body was tense, not aggressive, protective. The first gunshot cracked the air and I screamed. The sound was so loud it felt like it punched through my skull. A bullet hit a tree trunk to my left and bark exploded. Splinters flew. I stumbled backward on instinct. My foot caught on a root and I went down hard on my hip. Another shot, this one closer. I heard someone below yell, "Don't let it get away." My brain finally caught up. They thought he was just an animal. They were shooting to kill. I tried to get up, but my legs weren't working right. Fear does that. Makes you clumsy and slow when you need to be fast. I pushed myself up on my hands, and my boot slipped on the loose gravel near the cliff edge. I felt the ground shift under me. My stomach dropped. I was too close, way too close. The edge was crumbling, and I was sliding toward it. I looked down and saw the rocks 60 feet below, saw the men scrambling up the slope with rifles in their hands. One of them had a camera pointed up at me. They were filming this. I heard him before I felt him. A deep bellow that shook my ribs. Then his hand closed around the back of my jacket. His fingers were huge. I felt them through the fabric, warm and solid. He yanked me toward him, trying to pull me away from the edge. For a second I thought it would work. I thought he'd save me. But the angle was wrong. The ground under my feet gave way completely. Rocks and dirt slid over the side. I was falling. My hand shot out and grabbed at air, at him, at anything. His grip tightened. He pulled harder. His arm swung me to the side, and I hit solid ground 3 feet from the edge. My shoulder slammed into rock, and pain shot through me. But I was safe. I was on the flat. I gasped and rolled onto my back. He was above me, silhouetted against the sky. His chest was heaving. His eyes found mine for just a second. Then his weight shifted wrong. He'd been leaning too far, pulling too hard. The edge where he stood cracked. His arms windmilled, his face changed, and then he went over backward. I screamed his name even though I didn't have a name for him. The sound that came out of me was animal. I crawled to the edge on my stomach and looked down. He was falling. His body hit an outcrop halfway down and tumbled. He crashed into the rocks at the bottom and didn't move. The men swarmed him immediately. I heard one of them shout, "We got it. We actually got it." Another raised his rifle over his head like he'd just won something. My phone was still on the rock where I'd left it, still recording. The lens was pointed right at the spot where he'd stood, right at the place where he'd saved my life and lost his own. I don't remember getting down from that cliff. My body must have done it on autopilot because the next thing I knew I was at the bottom, stumbling over roots and rocks. My hands scraped raw from grabbing at trees to keep from falling. My shoulder screamed where I'd hit the ground, but I didn't care. I had to get to him. I had to see. The men heard me coming. They turned with their rifles halfway raised and then lowered them when they saw I was just a woman, just someone small and bleeding and not a threat. He was lying on his side in a twisted heap. One arm was stretched out and the other was folded under him. His legs were bent at angles that didn't look right. There was blood on the rocks beneath his head, dark and thick. His eyes were half open, but they weren't looking at anything anymore. I fell to my knees next to him and put my hand on his shoulder. His hair was coarse under my palm and still warm. He was so big up close. Even broken and still, he took up so much space. I started sobbing, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deeper than your lungs. One of the men stepped closer. He had a camera in his hand, still recording. His face was red and sweaty, and he was grinning. "This is incredible," he said. "Do you know what this is? Do you know what we just found?" I looked up at him, and I wanted to scream. I wanted to claw his eyes out. "You killed him," I said. My voice came out raw. "He saved me, and you killed him." The man blinked. His smile flickered. "He was trying to get you," he said. "We saw it. It was attacking." "No," I said. "No, he wasn't. He was protecting me from you." Another man came over. He was older with a gray beard and a vest covered in pockets. He knelt down on the other side of the body and touched the arm, lifting it slightly. "Look at the muscle structure," he said to the camera. "Look at the hand, 5 fingers, opposable thumb. This is a primate. This is real." He sounded amazed. He sounded like a kid on Christmas morning. I wanted to vomit. The third man was on his phone. "No signal," he said. "We need to get this out of here. We need to get it somewhere we can preserve it before it starts to decay." I stood up fast. My legs shook, but I made myself solid. "You're not taking him," I said. They all looked at me. The older man stood too. "Ma'am," he said in a voice like he was talking to someone confused, "this is the discovery of the century. This proves everything. We have to document this. We have to get scientists involved. You can't just leave it here." "Him," I said. "Not it. Him. And you're not taking him anywhere." The younger one with the camera laughed. "It's not like you own it," he said. "We found it. We got it on film. This is ours." I felt something break inside me. I lunged at him and shoved him hard in the chest. He stumbled back, surprised. The camera fell out of his hand and hit a rock. The screen cracked. "Hey," he yelled, "you crazy witch." The older man grabbed my arm. "Calm down," he said. "You're in shock. Let us handle this." I ripped my arm away and ran. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I had to get away. I had to get to my phone. I had to do something. I crashed through the brush and branches whipped my face. Behind me, I heard them arguing. One said to let me go. Another said they should follow me and make sure I didn't call the cops. I didn't care. I climbed back up that trail faster than I'd ever moved in my life. My lungs burned. My legs felt like they'd give out, but I kept going. When I reached the top, the sun was starting to set. Everything was washed in orange and gold. My phone was still sitting on the rock where I'd left it. The screen showed 4 minutes and 17 seconds of recording time. I picked it up with shaking hands. The battery was at 2%. I tapped the screen and watched the video from the beginning. It showed me talking. Then it showed him stepping into frame behind me. You could see everything, his size, his face, the way he moved. The gunshots were loud and sharp on the recording. You could hear me scream. You could see him reach for me. You could see the exact moment he saved my life, and the exact moment the ground gave way under him. I watched him fall in the video, watched his body hit the rocks. My stomach turned, but I didn't look away. The camera kept recording after I ran. It caught the men celebrating. It caught one of them raising his rifle in triumph. It caught their voices. We got it. We actually got it. The video ended when the battery finally died, or when the impact had damaged something inside. 4 minutes and 17 seconds. That was all it took for everything to change. I sat down hard on the rock. The sun was sinking behind the mountains, and the temperature dropped fast. I was still crying, but it was quieter now. Empty. I looked at my phone and I knew what I had to do. This video was the only proof, the only record of what really happened. If I kept it to myself, those men would take his body and tell whatever story they wanted. They'd say they were defending themselves. They'd say he was dangerous. They'd put him in a freezer or sell him to some collector who'd cut him apart to see how he worked. But if I posted the video, the world would see the truth. They'd see him step out to warn me. They'd see him pull me to safety. They'd see that he wasn't a monster. Maybe it wouldn't bring him back. Maybe it wouldn't stop them from taking his body. But at least people would know. At least Maya would know I tried. I opened the app. My hands were steadier now. I typed the title slowly. Final video. What really happened at the cliff. In the description, I wrote, "They took his body. They're calling it a hoax. This is the truth. I'm sorry I led them to you." Then I hit upload and watched the bar creep across the screen. It took forever on the weak signal, but it went through. The video posted at 6:32 in the evening on October 14th. By the time I got home, it had 5,000 views. By midnight, it had 100,000. By morning, the whole world was watching. The video hit 1 million views in the first 24 hours. By the second day, it was everywhere. News sites picked it up. Morning shows played clips. People broke it down frame by frame on every platform you could think of. I sat in my cabin with the curtains drawn and watched the world react. Some people said it was the most convincing footage they'd ever seen. Primate experts came forward, saying the way he moved was biomechanically perfect. A digital forensics team analyzed the video and said they couldn't find evidence of editing or CGI. The muscle movement under the hair, the way his pupils responded to light, the reflex adjustments when the ground shifted, all of it was too complex to fake. But plenty of people still didn't believe. They said I'd hired someone in a suit. They said Hollywood could make anything look real these days. One guy posted a whole video explaining how I probably used motion capture and rendering software. He had charts and everything. The comments under my video became a war zone. Believers versus skeptics. People calling each other idiots. People posting threats. I stopped reading after the first few hundred. What made it worse was the men. Pacific crypto hunters went private the day after my video posted, deleted everything. But people had already saved their old videos and pictures. Screenshots spread everywhere. Someone found a post from their channel bragging about planning a trip to BC to hunt Sasquatch. The date matched. People put it together fast. The backlash was instant and brutal. They were called murderers. Their personal information got leaked. One of them lost his job. They released a statement through a lawyer saying they acted in self-defense and that they donated the specimen to a private research facility for scientific study. They wouldn't say where. That word, specimen, made me want to break things. He wasn't a specimen. He had a family. He'd cared for my daughter. He'd saved my life. And now he was in some freezer being measured and photographed and cut apart by people who'd never know what he was really like. I sat at my kitchen table and cried until I had nothing left. Maya found me there. She'd been so quiet since it happened. She climbed into my lap even though she was too big for it now and put her arms around my neck. "It's okay, Mama," she whispered. "Uncle isn't hurting anymore. He's with Auntie now." I held her and didn't tell her that wasn't how death worked. Maybe for her it was better to believe that. The calls and emails started coming. News stations wanted interviews. Documentary crews wanted access. A producer from Netflix offered me money to tell the full story. I ignored all of it. People started showing up at the property. I'd look out the window and see cars parked at the end of the driveway. People with cameras trying to get shots of the cabin. Someone left flowers on the stump where Maya used to leave drawings. It felt invasive and kind at the same time, and I hated both. We couldn't stay. I knew that. It had become a circus, and we were the main attraction. I posted one more update 2 weeks after the video went viral. It was just text. No video. No pictures. It said, "Maya asked me why Uncle tried to save me when he knew people wanted to hurt him. I told her some beings are just better than we deserve. We're gone. Don't look for us. Don't look for them. Let them be." Then I deleted my account, shut down my email, got rid of my phone and bought a cheap prepaid one with a new number. We packed what mattered and left everything else. I didn't tell anyone where we were going. Not friends, not family. We just disappeared. We've been gone 3 months now. We're living in a small town in Alberta where nobody knows us and nobody cares. Maya goes to a new school where she doesn't talk about what happened. I got a job at a grocery store under my middle name. We live in an apartment above a laundromat, and it's loud and cramped and nothing like the cabin. But it's safe. Nobody's looking for us here. At night, I still hear that humming sometimes in my head, that low rhythmic sound he used to make outside the window. Maya says she hears it too. She says it means he's still watching over us. I don't have the heart to tell her that's impossible. But then, something happened last week that I can't explain. A researcher I'd talked to once before, everything fell apart, sent me a message on an old email account I'd forgotten I had. He said he didn't want to bother me, but thought I should see something. He attached a video file. It was trail camera footage from a location he wouldn't name, somewhere deep in northern BC. The timestamp said it was from 3 weeks ago. I almost didn't open it. I didn't want to see more hunters or more people treating the forest like a hunting ground, but something made me click it. The footage was grainy and dark, shot at dawn or dusk when the light was low. For the first few seconds there was nothing, just trees and underbrush. Then 2 figures walked into frame, big ones. They moved through the woods side by side, not in a hurry. One was massive, broad-shouldered, at least 8 or 9 feet tall. The other was smaller, maybe 6 feet, younger. They walked the way a parent and child walk when they're comfortable with each other, when they know the path. The larger one paused for a moment and turned its head toward the camera. It looked right at the lens like it knew it was there. Then they kept walking and disappeared into the trees. I watched that clip 50 times. I zoomed in as far as the quality would let me. The smaller one was carrying something in its arms, something light-colored and soft. In one frame, enhanced and sharpened as much as the program could manage, you could just barely make out the shape. It looked like a stuffed animal. It looked like a rabbit with long ears. I sat back from the screen and felt my breath catch. Maya came over and looked at the video over my shoulder. "Is that them?" she asked. "Is that Uncle and Auntie?" "I don't know," I said. "But maybe." I wanted it to be true. I wanted to believe that he'd survived somehow, that the fall hadn't killed him, that his family had found him and helped him, and he was out there still, deep in the forest, where people couldn't reach. But I knew better. I'd seen him at the bottom of that ravine. I'd seen the blood. The video was probably a different family, a different group. The world was bigger than we thought, and maybe there were more of them out there than anyone knew. Maybe the smaller one had found Maya's rabbit at our old cabin after we left. Maybe it was just coincidence, but Maya didn't think so. She watched the clip and smiled for the first time in weeks. "He's okay," she said. "I knew he'd be okay. I didn't argue with her. I saved the video file to a hard drive and buried it in a folder where nobody would find it unless they knew exactly what to look for. Then I deleted the email. The researcher never contacted me again. The video never went public. As far as I know, I'm the only person outside of him who's ever seen it. The footage has been watched by 47 million people now. My original video, the one that showed the truth, people still argue about it, still break it down, still call it fake or call it proof. I don't care anymore. I'm not trying to convince anyone. I just needed to say what happened. I needed to tell someone that he was real, and he was kind, and he didn't deserve what they did to him. Some truths destroy what they reveal. I know that now, but some truths are worth telling anyway. Maya and I are okay. We're safe. We're far from those woods. But sometimes late at night, when the apartment is quiet and the streetlights make shadows on the wall, I think I hear it. 3 soft knocks, a low humming, the feeling that something large and gentle is standing just outside, making sure we're all right. It's impossible. I know that. But I listen anyway. And in the morning when I wake up, there's always a part of me that wonders if maybe, just maybe, some things are bigger and stranger and kinder than we'll ever understand. And maybe that's okay. Maybe not everything needs to be proven or explained or captured. Maybe some things are allowed to stay wild and unknown and sacred. I hope so. For his sake, I really hope so.